practice some bending there, just on a single string. It's a great way to, working on a single string is, you can do a lot of great things. I'm just working on one string. In this case, I'm just working on bending, so I just thought I'd take a little bit of time here and explain a few things. So I'm in the key of A minor there, and so what I'm doing is I'm seeing my full A minor scale, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. I'm seeing that all on the high E string, right? Now what's great about this is that I can see my intervals distance, right? Or the half steps or whole steps, you could say. So like I know between A and B, that's a whole step, right? Between B and C is a half step. Between C and D is a whole step. Between D and E is a whole step. Between E and F there's a half step. And then between F and G is a whole step. And then G back to A. And then everything just starts over again, right? So now what's great about this is an easy way to be able to practice, your bending in terms of how far you need to bend. So like I can bend this, I can pick A, and I can bend, so instead of going A, B, C, right, that's pretty generic in a sense, let's say. Not that it's bad, it's just a lot of ways we can play those notes. So one way would be to go pick, and bend into the C, right? Now that's a half step bend, so we've got to learn how far to get. So I'm picking the note. I'm trying to go right to it. Right? And then I go to the C, and I bend the C. So here's D. So you can hear. Now when we get in, let's just take a second here and talk about bending too, okay? So from a physical standpoint as to what what we do when we bend, okay? So, what they call it the blues grip is when you get kind of locked in like this. I'm not getting cuppy here with my hand. I'm just locking in here, right? And my thumb comes over the top. You're never going to see me bending with my thumb underneath, my fingers like straight on and then like flat, right? I'm never like stuff. You're not going to have the control or the power you need to be able to effectively hit the bend, right? So, for some of you out there, maybe that's what you've been doing. I do see this a lot as I teach. It's kind of a common thing. If you've never done it before, you don't know. So, bringing your thumb over the top may be a little bit weird at first for you. And then also you can see how my fingers are really at an angle when I do this, right? Again, they're not, it's really impossible. It's almost impossible in a sense to keep me from getting flat with my thumb over the top and keeping my fingers like straight. So it's like as soon as you bring your thumb over, you can see how your fingers naturally want to just curl to go with the way the thumb's going up, right? Okay, so now a lot of times, you're going to try to bend with as many fingers as possible, but that doesn't always mean that that's going to happen, right? So let's take for instance here, like if I was to, like here's a case where I may be coming down from the D note to the B. Now I want to bend the B back up to the C. I am just going to use my first finger. Right, now there's also a case where I could be up here playing E, F, and G, and I want to bend that F up to the G. Now I'm using my middle finger, okay? So basically the only time I would use one finger to bend is if I was using my first finger. And to be honest, that's not going to happen too often. And a lot of times, if that is happening, it's mainly going to be a half step bend. Now, you can do some, like blues, and even then I'm not always getting a whole step bend there. I'm just kind of, right? So if I need a whole step bend, most likely I'm using either my middle finger and I'd have my index finger behind that to give me more power. I'm still hooking over the top here with the blues grip, the bend, or I'm going to use my ring finger and have all these other two fingers behind it on the same string, again for more power and leverage. Okay. And again, I just want to reiterate that I'm not getting cuppy here. I'm not like there's space down in here, right? Okay. Another thing here is the idea of a lot of times what I see too when I see bending is I see people, letting the other strings, make noise. Now I do have just gain on, so I'm getting some noise, but I'm talking like letting go of, like that right there, like letting go of the bend and then having another string, like the string above it, like ring out like that, right? Okay, so now there's ways that we can combat that. So again, the noise that you're hearing is from the amp and the distortion. So I'm talking about just like string noise coming out, right? So one of the things I do to combat this is, I'm really using my right hand here to mute out a lot of these strings, the lower strings. But now what I'm doing here is when I say I bend this high, we'll come up to the 10th fret here. So if I'm bending this high E string up, I'm already touching the B string. So now if I go to, when I go to bend this, I'm going to be touching it the whole time, and even when watch as I release it now, you can see that I'm touching, that B string is muted out the whole time. So when I let go of it, it's not like that right there where it's, right, and it can ring out, like nothing, you can see here when I let go, like everything here is muted out, so I'm covered that way. Now, I play on stage, so I play at high volumes and lots of gain and things like that, so if I'm just letting these strings like unattended, they're going to make massive amounts of noise and just, it ain't going to sound good, right? So that's something to think about. It's the same thing. I'll deviate here for a second just to go to another string. So I went to the G string here of the 7th fret. It's the same idea here. I'm touching the D string now, right? But I'm also taking care of the bottom 2 strings with my index and the other finger. So again, nothing's gonna, see, I'm bringing my thumb over the top. So when I bend this up, everything else is muted out with the string that I'm bending, right? Okay? So work on that stuff. Be aware, of what you're doing as you do this stuff. A lot of people just struggle with their bending because they're physically not in the right position to make it happen, okay? And like I said, a single string is great because you can see your steps and you can work on if you want a whole step or half step bend. Now you can bend a step and a half. I always say listen to David Gilmour because a lot of people do it, but he does it really effectively. So if I was to come up here and bend that A at the 17th fret of the high E string, well, I could bend that up a step and a half, which would be 3 frets. That'd be going to C, right? So there's my step and a half. There's my step, right? So I'm playing these notes before I bend them, so I hear them as a way to be able to practice knowing that I got into the right step for the bend, okay? Well, I think I will just play a little bit out here and I just show you a little bit more of this stuff here. So there's that step and a half bend. Half step bend, shaking the bend, whole step, there's that half step with the first finger, right? Hear that? Now I'm shaking that bend. Now I'm just going to keep it. Now I'm bending that F with my middle finger. Then right back. That's cool. When you bend up, release, I go back and I bend it right back to the note I was on. All right, see that?